Hey, good morning, it's Jillian. And I just wanted to say good morning. I hope you guys are all well. I have been working on my food intake because with my husband being home more often than not, I've been cooking for him, which means I've been eating with him. And he doesn't eat light meals. He's not a salad type of dude. He's a very heavy meat and vegetable type of dude. So, now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be doing all that heavy eating. And okay, sorry, I had to check something out. I'm not doing all that heavy eating. So I've actually lightened my eating, but it's a diverse diet that I'm eating. It's a diverse food supply that I'm eating, but it's not as heavy. Okay. However, I needed to eat heavy trying to battle this COVID because your body is going to need the maximum amount of nutritional intake so your body can upgrade. But when your body finally is able to upgrade to the level of your environment, then you can calm down on the food intake and then allow your body to release any excess and get a nice homeostasis. Okay? So I noticed that while I was healing with the Jilly juice and on the COVID, I was drinking lots of Coke because I needed the sugar. And it's interesting because I noticed that my dog also needed a lot of sugar. She was going through an upgrade where it caused her to be a little bit low in sugar. And so that's when I gave her my Jilly juice with the maple syrup, and it got her sugar levels all perfect. So that's where the evolution of the Jilly juice protocol, where if you are underweight with potential hypoglycemic type issues, why it was okay to add in the maple syrup or the fruit syrup for those that are having hypoglycemic issues or underweight, because the sugar and the minerals in syrup will give you the added calories, especially for those of you that have a hard time processing food given your issues. And so with the Jilly juice, you get the probiotics, you get the salt, you get the micro and macronutrition, and then you also get the sugar, which are the added calories. Now, if you have diabetic issues or you have obesity issues, obviously you might lay off on the syrup and the J juice and just drink the J juice and eat a sensible diet. What that is just whatever you have to eat until your body tells you that you don't need to eat as much, or you're eating, too little and you need to eat more. Okay? So anyways, so I last night I was thinking about life and death, and I was talking about how life isn't death, okay? Death isn't life. And though we've been made to believe that they are interchangeable, that life is death and death is life, and even when you die, you're going to live and pass on to the next thing. And okay, that's still a belief. It's not really been substantiated that you're going to go to some kind of heaven or nirvana or another planet. I mean, I don't know. People are interesting when they think about the afterlife. But life and death are very, very black and white. And so you always have choices between life and death. And that's the hard thing to get across to people, is that you have a choice and you don't have to die. Though death and reproduction, they do go hand in hand, but it's like with your telomeres, the lengthening of your telomeres tells you how well you have the ability to regenerate life at the micro level. And so with the whole thing with the J juice in these jars is like the human body, and the jars are like the body, the structure of the body, like your belly. And then everything inside the Jilly juice is what's within you. It's your microbiome. And it's not everything, it's a component of your microbiome. And so when you leave the Jilly juice jars out or you have them in your refrigerator for long periods of time, it'll still regenerate life. Okay, unless your refrigerator is like frozen and you're having stuff freeze, then yeah, if you have a freezing Jilly juice, then you're freezing forms of life. So they're not replicating, they're frozen in time. But if you have like maybe 40 degrees and it's not freezing, you will still grow lactobacillus, okay, which then the byproduct is lactic acid. No different than when you leave the jars out indefinitely, probiotics will continue to grow. And so I say for optimal probiotic to have it be ready in like 3 days, it's between 65 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit at room temperature, because you're not going to be, sitting in a temperature of 98.6, which is your internal temperature. However, lactobacillus will still thrive in 98.6 because it's an endospore. It's a very resilient endospore that can handle salt, and it is part of your microbiome, the lactobacillus, the lactic acid, the byproduct. So that's why lactobacillus is one of the greatest gut bacteria, because it can thrive in the bile ducts, the salty bile ducts. And so when you do the J juice and you do a bunch of waterfalls, and I noticed with my waterfalls the different colors that it was changing. And so it went from really brown with all of the poop stuff, okay? And then it went to like a green, and which is a greenish purple, which is the color of the Jilly juice. And then it went to a bright yellow. And that bright yellow is the bile salts, because the colon is saying, okay, there's enough salt in the body. We're going to release the excess and keep what we need. Because yes, you can't possibly dose yourself to know how much of the Jilly juice to take, though your body will let you know how much you can take relative to what you can handle. And that's why some people, when they first start the Jilly juice, they do maybe about a teaspoon and they get waterfalls. But you can't be doing a teaspoon all the time. That's just some people in the beginning. They're elderly and they have more of a fragile system, so their healing process has to be slower. Though as you increase your tolerance level, you'll be able to take more and you'll be able to repair more, and then your body will release more. No different than when you eat more, your body will process more and fix more, and then it will release more. I mean, it's all in fractional proportions. Everything is contingent upon the amount of your intake will be the amount of your release, and then the amount of what you'll be fixing and how fast it's going to be. Because if you have a lot of predispositions and you're only doing like a teaspoon a day, you're never going to get there, because whatever there is, because you're still in an aggressive environment, you have predispositions, and then you have a microbiome that's way out of whack. Your little teaspoon a day is going to do nothing for you, really, okay? Especially if you can handle more than a teaspoon a day. So those that are like nursing themselves with like a teaspoon, a cup, 2 cups, and that's all they've been doing for the last 4 years, and they're like me, but they have major predispositions, you can afford to increase your intake of nutrition. Okay, it doesn't make sense to totally baby yourself, because there's nothing dangerous about Jilly juice. It's food. Okay, so your body is able to regenerate lactobacillus at 98.6 degrees, which means that you can forever be creating lactobacillus in your body. But why would you keep taking J juice if you can create that balance of microbiome? Well, because J juice has the right amount of salt, has the necessary salt for the body to be able to create that and energize the body. So not even just growing the lactobacillus in your gut, but it's also energizing your system to release the excess. Because people grow lactobacillus in their gut all the time, drinking kombuchas and apple cider vinegars, and then they have lactic acidosis because they don't have an energizing force like the salt to be able to release the excess. So that's why people drinking kombucha, apple cider vinegars, the alcohols that they call fermentation, like tequila, I mean, or they are running and doing all these exercises, and they have this lactic acidosis, lactic acid production that's overabundant, then they start seeing symptoms of an overabundance of lactic acidosis or lactic acid, and they call it lactic acidosis. Okay, so the salt is that balancing force so you can release the excess. All right, and so with genetic lines and telomeres, when your ability to reproduce at the micro level, okay, you will have the ability to lengthen your telomeres. And when you lengthen your telomeres, it means that you will continuously live. Now, one way to look at your body lengthening the telomeres and dynasties out there are just like the Bush dynasty or the Rockefellers or Rothschilds, maybe, yeah, the Rothschilds, the Queen and the King and all these different dynasties and kingdoms. Their genetic lines are very, very long. Their bloodlines are very, very long. But that's no different than the short genetic lines in your body, the short little cells being jealous of the very long cells, the long telomeres, the ones that have been around. Okay, because you will have cells in your body that have never really needed to reproduce at the micro level. They are just continuously living. Okay, do all of your cells reproduce at some point? I don't think there's a way to even measure that. I'm sure that there are parent cells, because when you look at just family lines, the way that our system is that family lines, the parents die off at some point and then they bear children. Those children are then now the new cells in that universe or in that community, and then they die off. And then at some point with Jilly Juice and indefinite life, do you have to be that parent cell to where you have to die off to where you can create another one? No. So there's probably cells in your body that will have been with you ever since you were born and have never had to die off. Maybe they reproduced, but they never died off. But I don't, there's no way to prove that. So I don't know. But that's my theory on that. Which is why I'm introducing indefinite life with the Jilly Juice stuff. So life and death are black and white. That's where you can compartmentalize. That's when you can take a side, okay? That's when there is no gray area between life and death. There really isn't. Every choice you make is going to be on the trajectory of life or the trajectory of death, and there is no in between. Because when you're taking antibiotics, antivirals, antimicrobials, anti-this, anti-that, it's anti-life. It's not life-giving. It's death-giving. So you are on the side of death. You're not on the life side. If you believe people should die, then you are for the death side, not the life side. And so it's pretty black and white. No matter how much you spin it, it's black and white. So anyway, so I'm really energized. I feel great. I feel really strong. And knowing how to control, the accumulation and control my food intake and understand that, it is a balance with everything. It really is. And if you want to start, when you're healed and sealed for the most part, and you see a major difference in your body, mind, and spirit, okay, you can then start sculpting your body and have it be a specific way. You can actually start sculpting your body without the fear of you undermining your progress. Okay. But some of you are trying to sculpt your body and you haven't healed and sealed. You haven't reversed your issues. And so you're undermining with all of the exercise, and then you're not eating correctly. So your body isn't able to regenerate at the macro and micro level. And then you're dealing with an aggressive environment that is undermining you as well. And so some of you really need to relax and drink the J juice and allow your body to heal and watch the stuff come to surface, because you're going to see skin issues come to surface. You're going to see all these things that made you uncomfortable come to surface. Every single PTSD you've ever had, and even stuff that's in your family medical history that hasn't come up, will come up. And so that's something you have to deal with. And that's the immune response. Whenever you get an immune response from whatever, it doesn't matter what, it's the body trying to heal. What's an immune response? It's like a diagnosis. It is like a symptom. Okay? It really is. Diagnosis and symptoms are immune responses that the body has to be able to handle and deal with. And so, who is this? Emmanuel Patrick. Okay, so you want to laugh? Well, see you later, Emmanuel Patrick. Block. I don't deal with trolls. I don't care if you think it's a mistake or not. If you can't handle your buttons, then you won't deserve to be on my Facebook. So, but anyways, yeah, I caught that. But anyways, so what was I talking about? Yeah, but some of you are undermining yourself because you're not letting your body heal. You are putting too much emphasis on the superficial and you're not healing at this at the micro level. And so you're trying to get all of these benefits that are not deserved. And then you're playing the avoidance game, and then and the discrimination game, and then the demonization game, and then you don't see the bigger picture, and then your life becomes very, very subjective. And that's, and last night I was debating with an I don't say she's an anti-vax. I guess she is. She's a what is it? An informed consenter, a non-vaxxed person, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But it's like this. It's better to lead by example than to tell people not to do something. Okay? And that's one of the hardest things that I have to adopt to, because it's very easy for me to say, well, don't take the kombucha apple cider vinegars, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And it's like, okay, well, there has to be a reason why, but even then, like anything, it's like in moderation. Like everything, it's in moderation, right? If you're going to do a kombucha or an apple cider vinegar, don't do it for the intention to manage your disease and chronic illness. Because if that's what you're doing, then you might as well not even do J juice. Just go take all your pills, power supplements, and take the antibiotic lifestyle. And okay, well, kombucha is an antibiotic, it's probiotic. Yeah, but guess what? The amount of sugar, unless you're so underweight that you need that sugar to gain weight, but even then, you're not really gaining weight, you're feeding the candida, you're feeding the yeast. See, that's the thing, is that what you have to understand is every single food in the food supply has a specific purpose for the different parts of your microbiome. You have parasites, you have viruses. So viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. All of them derive some benefit from the food supply. But if you're taking something that's so antibiotic, it will then inhibit cell replication. So I don't want to tell someone not to do something, but you have to understand why it is and what it does. So that way you do it in moderation. If you want to drink apple cider vinegar, then put it as a salad dressing. Okay, you don't be drinking it in like, copious amounts. Okay, it's all about balance. If you're going to do a kombucha, hey, fine, take a shot. But if you have candida issues, then the sugar in the kombucha and then the antibiotic qualities in the kombucha, which they do have some, because they do have there are minerals in there. They're overabundant, as well as the sugar. And so that sugar feeds the candida, and that's where people have candida issues, because they're taking in copious amounts of something that they need to another balanced force, like the salt and the probiotics and all that. But I'm not saying, okay, do the kombucha and then drink salt water and then eat like a carrot or eat like a cabbage. That doesn't make sense. That's still compartmentalizing the food supply and then not taking in the right formula to allow your body to simultaneously do things. Okay, because the holistic world is all about compartmentalizing and demonizing. And so with the J juice, what it does is it brings everything together in a chemical process. And then you understand why it is that I say, okay, be careful in taking antibiotics that's in the elderberry syrups, that are in the colloidal silvers, that are in the turmerics and the honeys, and all of those as a reaction to cancer, disease, and chronic illness, because you're not going to do like in minimal amounts. No, I mean, if you did, then you would just use it to season your food, and it would be just like an afterthought. It wouldn't be an intention. And so what happens is those things actually cause an imbalance in the microbiome. So if you want to balance out your microbiome, you have to understand how each food is then related to your microbiome. And what feeds a virus? It's the cells. The cells are what the viruses attach themselves to. So when you take an antiviral, you're not really destroying the virus, you're destroying the host. Who's the host? You're the host. Okay? The cell is the host, and then all a bunch of cells is then you. So when you're taking antivirals, you're taking something that is like a poison, because what you're trying to do is now you're trying to suppress your immune system so it doesn't tell you what's wrong. And that's what these antivirals do, the antibiotics do, the antiparasites, the antifungals, the antimicrobials, the antibacterials. All of those are actually inhibiting your microbiome to self-replicate. And that's when you shorten your telomeres. So you have to think that you are a microbiome and you are teeming with life, that when you have symptoms like inflammation, you react to those symptoms in such a horrific way that you essentially destroy yourself at the micro level. And that is, I would say, very profound if you understand what your body is made up of. It's a microbiome, and it's made up of parasites, viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, bacteria, fungus, and then the byproduct of your microbiome is fatty acid, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. And then your fat has the prostaglandins, which allows your body to heal. And so when you're trying to cut out all the fat in your diet and you have no fat on your body or hardly any fat, then your ability to heal will be very, very hard and minimal. I mean, you see the people that are very, very skinny and older, elderly people that have very papery, thin skin, hardly any fat in their body, and they don't heal very well because they don't have enough fat on their body. But then you have too much fat on your body, it will then tax your vital organs. So again, it is balance, okay? So the food supply, when you have too much kombucha and too much apple cider vinegar and too much honey and too much of sugar, then what you start seeing is the accumulation of fat on your body, but then also feeding the yeast, which then when you feed yeast, it turns into candida. Because what does yeast feed upon? It feeds upon sugars and sugar substitutes and heavy metals, a lot of minerals. And so that's why the salt is that balancing force, because it breaks up the heavy metals, it breaks up the minerals, so it decalcifies your pineal gland, it energizes your body to release the excess, and then allows your microbiome to flourish correctly as if you were in the ocean and with teeming with life. Okay, because there's even some salts in fresh water. There's salt beds underneath lakes and streams. The ocean has a lot more salt, but then there's brackish water where the ocean and the streams or the rivers meet, and then you have that mixture of brackish water where there's a lot more, I would say, bacteria and fungus in those parts, because there's fresh water and there's salt, and then there's a lot more life in those brackish waters. And then you have the salt water, which only a certain kind of life can fit in there. And then you have like the Dead Sea, where it's only a certain amount of life can live in the Dead Sea, but not as much. Okay? And so everything is about balance. So you have to understand why I try not to tell you what not to do, but you have to understand what these foods do and why to your microbiome. So then you understand how to balance it all out. So, so I was talking to an anti-vaxxer last night, and yeah, she's an anti-vaxxer and still very much into trying to demonize biotech and demonize the vaccines. And, there really is no reason to demonize it, because they do hold a place for those that still want to die, but they want a stay of execution. Because there's people out there that I say, hey, you don't have to die, that you actually could strengthen your body to where, yeah, you'll still be exposed to a virus. You'll still get some kind of reaction to a virus in the environment, but you don't have to die or sustain any kind of chronic condition. I mean, look, I had a 6-day headache. Connie, yeah, she's out of Europe. She had a 6-day headache too. She's on the J juice as well. Okay, a 6-day headache. For someone that is not as healthy as we are, that 6-day headache would probably been some kind of stroke or some kind of aneurysm or a death in someone in a condition that's not like ours. Okay, so we may experience, as far as us Jilly juicers, a type of reaction to a new environment, but we will never sustain any chronic condition because, first of all, we have enough of the minerals and the nutrients in our body to bounce back from a new environment upgrade. And we also have the Jilly juice to help support the body's ability to regenerate and put on reserve and release any excess viral data, which is what causes then people to have all these antibodies testing positive on a titer test for COVID or anything else. Okay? So that's what's available for those on Jilly juice, is that we can still adapt to an environment, we understand what symptoms are. We understand what the symptoms are, what these different feelings and pains are, and we're not scared of them. We know exactly what goes on. And even in our animals, when we see our animals go through an upgrade and we know the environment is affecting our animals, the animals, my animal has been on Jilly Juice for at least 2 years. Okay. And so she's already gone through many different upgrades. She's fixed her predispositions. Okay. She has pre-existing conditions and predispositions of seizures and hypoglycemia, diabetes, obesity. She went through all of those different healing symptoms on the J juice, and she is still upgrading to this environment, and she bounces back every single time. And she's doing great. She's very proportional, very alert, and I understand what she goes through, so I'm not alarmed. And if you look at her, she is amazing. I mean, that's the thing, is there is no fear with the Jilly Juice because your body's able to bounce back. And symptoms are not something to fear as long as you support the body correctly and you understand what food is for. It's not used as medicine, okay? Food is not used as a discriminatory weapon against your friends and family to judge and assess their lifestyle. Food is food, okay? And then you bring in certain foods to balance out the other foods, and that's how we have to understand Jilly Juice, so you're not using it as a medicine type of tool. Okay, so anyways, yeah, I mean, it's tough to watch people out there that are degrading, that are okay with death. Because now that we've introduced that you don't have to die and that death is a choice, such like life is a choice, then when people say, well, I want to die someday, I don't want to live forever, whatever that means, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I can't handle someone saying, well, life is so fragile, life is so short, here's my bucket list. When it's your time, it's your time. I mean, it grates on my nerves. And so it's hard for me to relate to anyone that believes that they should die or that is their future, because we've been told that life is basically you live to die, and I'm like, what the hell? That's just such a foreign concept to me now. And so when someone thinks that way, it's just so hard for me to relate to them unless I'm actually related to them in some way where there is a relationship that that we both are depending upon each other. And so if I don't have any dependency on you in some way or feel that, that we get some kind of quid pro quo with each other, then I have really no relationship, because that's such a weird mentality to think that, oh yeah, when it's your time, it's your time. And, here's my bucket list and death is acceptable. I was like, no, I can't handle that kind of defeatist type of thinking or lifestyle. But it's out there and I deal with it, but I don't love it. But anyways, once we understand that trauma is reproduction, trauma causes reproduction. And once you finally fix the traumas in your body, you won't have the need to reproduce or go into the actions of reproduction, whether or not that's your intention. But the act of reproduction comes from trauma as well. And so that's another thing that is difficult for people to understand, because they think that, oh yeah, all these people that are saying, oh yeah, if you having a healthy sex life, there's no such thing as a healthy sex life. Okay. Reproduction comes from trauma. It comes from wanting to mask the pain, and it comes from wanting to subconsciously reproduce because you know that you're on your way out the door. And that's also very blasphemous in our society because of how mainstream reproduction is in all different levels. Even if that's not your intention to reproduce, the act of reproduction, or that whole thing, is very much mainstreamed and normalized. And so, yeah, I mean, definitely Jilly Juice is fighting an uphill battle. It's definitely fighting an uphill battle. But many people on my Jilly Juice are seeing the benefits. I mean, you're seeing some people's testimonies. They say it in the group, and then I go and post it out there as, an anonymous. And if you're in the group, you can see who it is. And, and then that you see what people are going through and you see what their perception is of Jilly Juice. And then you'll make that, your own choice on whether or not you want to live or you want to go on that trajectory. And then you don't know when you might actually kick off. I mean, that's the scary thing about living in our society and you're not on Jilly Juice is that you don't know when your last day is because the environment is so volatile that you get exposed to a major viral upload. You have predispositions. You may not survive your exposure. I mean, how many people really plan to die out there? Nobody plans to die. It just happens. But sometimes, there are indicators, but they're like, oh, well, modern medicine will help fix me up. Oh, a vaccine will fix me up. Oh, this medicine or this prescription drug or this procedure, taking out something will fix me up. But that's not the end all be all. If anything, that weakens your ability to be able to adapt to any new viral upload. So right now, when you have the COVID and it's all being mutated and now we're opening up society and there's going to be people hanging out in bars. And right now they're saying that you can't have more than 10 people at a bar or a restaurant. And the bar will be closed, but the restaurant will be open, but no more than 10 people at a table. And if you do, you're going to get fined or something. The establishment will get fined. People are going to still congregate over at house parties. I saw the other day my neighbors all get together. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I don't care. That's their choice. But that's the thing is people don't know what they can handle because they're not really aware of their own body. They've already ignored the indicators. They're on their prescription drugs. They're aging and degrading. They've already survived a few heart attacks. Okay. And so it's just like, I feel bad for those that have predispositions, not on J juice, out there in the environment, thinking that, okay, I feel great, I'm safe, when, oh my God, you don't know when the next level of degradation is going to happen. And so with the J juice, at least you have now the control to where you don't have to succumb to your environment. Okay. And so everything happens from the micro to the macro. And so that's the whole point of Jilly Juice, is to deal with yourself from the micro level, understand cell replication, understand your microbiome, understand your biochemistry, understand the chemistry out there, the elements, the environment and how that all works together. And then what is mucus and what are antibodies and, what is autophagy and what are actually waterfalls and why are there different colors in your waterfalls. And then how the body actually saves you from being too dehydrated or too hydrated. But yet some people who just totally are suicidal will do whatever the hell to destroy their body. And that's the thing is our government does not want people who are suicidal. People are like, oh yeah, well, I want to have I want to have a choice. That's the whole argument with some anti-vaxxers. I want to have a choice. I want to have a choice, whether or not I should partake in some of these public health measures. Well, you realize that people that are suicidal want a choice to live or die. They don't want to have somebody stop them, and so our government's like, okay, well, we got to assess whether or not you have the mental capability to make these type of choices, because we know that people are not always in their right minds. They're not very well educated. They're scientifically illiterate. And so we're going to have to be mommy and daddy because we're forced to be mommy and daddy. And so when a kid says, I want a choice to be able to walk out in the street and not look both ways, mom and dad be like, oh, hell no. And they grab their kid's hand and control their child from walking out in the middle of the street without looking both ways. I mean, that's kind of what the anti-vaxxers are talking about, and that's where they're coming from, is the point of a child where they're just like, I want to be able to have the freedom to walk out in the middle of the street without having to look both ways because you told me not to, or you told me to, or whatever, right? And so sometimes, when people are that scientifically illiterate, it's like taking a child's hand and walking them across the street because you can't trust them to make the right choice for themselves. And that sucks that we have a society where somebody has to be the authority because we have created that learned helplessness, that dependency on authority. But now with the internet, you have the ability to learn. You have the ability to break out of your helplessness. You have the ability to expand your intentions, your horizons, whatever. And also, too, you could be very misled by the internet as well because you don't have discernment. And that is acquired. That is not something that is innate. Because I'll tell you what, when I first got on the internet, I was watching every freaking video on YouTube about the conspiracy world, Alex Jones, David, Ike. Oh my God. I mean, all the UFO conspiracy stuff. I mean, the Illuminati, MK Ultra, ISIS, Egyptian. I mean, you name it. I was in it all. The whole Disney stuff, the 33 Freemason stuff. I mean, I'll tell you what, I was a victim of so much information that I couldn't differentiate between what was fact and what was fiction. And heavily into the holistic, allopathic, buying all the pills, powders, and supplements, and all the detoxes, taking in borax in my body, taking in diatomaceous earth, bentonite clay. I mean, I was in it all. And oh my God, I survived the internet before I was able to really discern what was true and what was not true. But I survived it. Not many people survive the internet. Some people have not survived. I've watched people on my Facebook that have been doing the holistic stuff and all of that. And their friends are like, oh, this guy or this woman passed away, send healing prayers. And I looked at this person's Facebook and they've been in all the holistic remedies. They're in the conspiracy world. They're doing the pills, powders, and supplements. Their friends are recommending all this stuff. And they haven't survived the internet. They did not survive the conspiracy holistic world. They didn't survive it. And you're like, damn. But I could say I survived the internet before I was able to discern what was true and what was false. That should be a freaking t-shirt. I survived the internet before I was able to discern fact from fiction. Because I'm telling you, many people cannot say that they survived the internet because they died. I mean, there's guys on there right now. Well, yeah, I mean, you guys know, but people die all the time from the internet stuff. Okay. So anyways, so learning what the laws are of life and the laws of death, I was able to pick out then what was life-giving and what was death-giving. And then I learned how to expound on the life-giving protocols, on what causes life, and then mitigate and lessen the amount of the death stuff. Okay. And so that's when I was able to then pick out what was true on the internet and what was false, because then my biochemistry was able to balance itself out. My microbiome was balancing itself out. And then I'm like, oh my God, should I be blaming Bill Gates for vaccines? No. I mean, he doesn't have a degree. I mean, come on. I mean, the hatred against me because of articles written, the hatred against Bill Gates, the hatred against all these different people is like totally asinine now. Now that I see it from this perspective of being more balanced than not, I would say that, wow, I'm ashamed of how I was a couple years ago, blaming Bill Gates and hating Microsoft, but yet I'm using Microsoft, right? And then I'm like, you know what? But that was the biochemistry that I was in. It took being on the J juice and healing and sealing and going through the traumas of the headaches and the upgrades and going through the healing process for me to finally see things on a very objective level. And that is a personal journey. So that's why it's very hard for me, as well as a lot of you, to get your friends and family to really understand this, because they're seeing everything through the eyes of their imbalanced biochemistry, of which is why it's very hard for a person who's sick with cancer, disease, and chronic illness have any kind of credible opinion on health and wellness when they're so subjective, looking through the lens of their disease, which is then going to put blinders on everything. And then what happens is that the people in the medical and holistic world are also aging and degrading. And so they're reinforcing that you're going to die someday, but let me sell you something that will give you a temporary stay of execution. And their patients are dying and the doctors are dying. And so it becomes this infinite loop of life and death between the holistic allopathic patients and practitioners. And so what we're trying to do with the J juice is get out of that infinite loop of life and death at the macro level and understand that there is life and death at the micro level, but the macro doesn't have to die, okay? Or reproduce, babies upon babies upon babies. And then these babies are not really aligning themselves or balanced at all in our environment. And then they turn into some of these corrupt criminals or politicians, okay? Because we are creating a society where we have to have authorities, all right? So everything is connected. But first we have to know that there's a choice between life and death. It's not something that you just deal with. Oh, I'm going to die someday, so might as well just have fun and live like there's no tomorrow, because there's always a tomorrow. You just choose not to have one because that's your belief system. So anyways, yeah, I'm rambling, but I just wanted to give you my energy, my minerals, my thought process. I feel actually amazing today. Um, I don't feel like I have to eat a lot of food, which is going to not make my body work so hard because I don't need to. But I'll tell you what, healing is a lot of work because it's the eating, and then it's the expelling, and it's the processing. It's feeling all the different symptoms of the healing process. And so I just noticed, that when I was upgrading to the COVID, I was eating a lot of meat and a lot of Coca-Cola, and my body needed to. And now I don't need as much meat, the red meat, and I don't need as much of the Coca-Cola. And it's time for me to chill out on expounding too much on these foods. And now that's why I made the Chinese chicken salad, because I get a nice plethora of a diverse diet of meat, protein, sugar, and nutrients, hormones from the salad. And it's not too much taxing to my body. Because I don't, and then I'll probably go run up down the stairs a few times and strengthen my legs, maybe do a few sit-ups, a few push-ups so I can strengthen my arms. And that's what I'm going to do so I get myself bathing suit ready. Okay? And then drink the J juice and release the excess and see if I could really morph my body in the way that I want to. Okay, so you guys have all of the power in the world to have the body the way you want it to be, but you definitely do have to go through the process of reversing your pre-existing conditions. And then I'm telling you, like, sky's the limit. You can do almost anything, be almost anything, and still live, thrive, instead of just survive. Okay, so there's my motivational speak for the day. You guys have a great day. Even if it's just one of you listening to me, I'm okay with that. It's early. I was up early. And hopefully, you guys will have you guys will dream your dreams and then just do the work. For you to achieve your dreams, you have to get the work done first, and that is your body. And what's amazing with what I've dealt with as far as the COVID was the fact that I started feeling the symptoms of the COVID back in January, February. And then I went through a major regime change through my inner circle. And then I took on writing the book. Okay, so I took on writing the book. They had a regime change, and I justified it too. I don't love justifying it, but I did. And then wrote a book, getting it published, have a target of June, writing another book, going through the process of publishing, which is a pain in the ass sometimes, and still go through the healing stuff, watch my dog go through the healing stuff, watch my husband and make sure that he's okay, and then deal with some of the changes in our environment as far as, occupational wise too, because he's doing fine. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of changes going on as far as just the world out there. And so you'll be able to handle anything that comes your way. Okay. You won't feel like stuck or like totally surprised that life takes a left turn. You'll be able to adapt to the changes and still be very successful and think clear-headedly and still future think. Okay, that is probably unheard of in the world before J Juice, that I could handle all of this stuff and not fall apart somewhere and still get my period without getting PMDD. Okay, so you'll be able to multitask and handle everything when life goes so many different directions and you've never had these experiences before, but you'll be able to handle them and still be amazing. Okay, so that's what's available with J Juice, but you still have to do the work at the micro level. You got to heal and seal. You got to deal with your eczema. You got to deal with your psoriasis. You got to deal with the headaches. You got to deal with everything that you've ever had to deal with, and you'll still be able to survive it and then thrive. Okay? All right. Have a great day. Bye.